Modeling is very interesting. And throughout the years, I've applied a lot of my yoga practice and my meditation practice to modeling because you have to become this formless person in a form.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another session of Influencer Insights, where I have Natalia from out in the beautiful Sunshine Coast in British Columbia. She's kind of living partially off the grid in a wonderful forest little village out there. So thank you for joining us, Natalia. We're really excited to have you on and hear about some of your modeling journey and your entrepreneurial spirits and finding better ways to live sustainably. I think that's really cool stuff. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself as we get started here.
Well, my name is Natalia, and some people know me by different names, whether that's Observe, Breathe, or Queen of the Green. And I'm a multi-talented artist turned influencer. As a musician, I help to raise funds to clean plastic out of the oceans and help protect forests. And As an influencer, I'm geared towards working more so with sustainable companies, or at least people who have sustainable options, because sometimes we wear artificial things, but it's just about a healthy balance in life. I've learned, I've been the eco freak and I've been the fashionista. And I find that it's just about finding a balance and taking care of the cloth in such a way so that we're not leaking tons of microplastics everywhere all the time. And just, having a healthy balance. So for me, as an influencer, that's kind of what I'm influencing is green beauty, green makeup, or cleaner makeup, because some people say no makeup is clean, but there is makeup made with better ingredients. So I think that that's what we mean when we're saying clean or green makeup.
Okay.
And I'm also influencing skincare, better with age. I don't really like the term anti-aging, but as we're decaying in these flesh suits, it's really nice to learn how to take care of our bodies and optimize our cell regeneration and whatnot. So for me, a lot of the products and the people that I work with as an influencer are geared towards health and wellness and beauty, but beauty from the inside out, right? Nice. Feeling good from the inside out. So,
cool. Yeah. So what prompted that train of thought? Where did that start for you? Was it when you were young, you were like, hey, I want to be more sustainable? You'd seen things in the world, or did you just start learning about it on the internet or in the research that you've done? What kind of prompted wanting to be an influencer of sustainability?
I would say that I have a pretty crazy life story, so I'm not gonna give the full go, but
sure.
I had some near-death experiences that really gave me some awakening. That had to do with losing brain fluid and overdoses and things like that. And then I had this massive awakening in those experiences, because I think that when our life is hanging by a thread, it just does something to our consciousness. And right? A lot of DMT gets released, a lot of missions, right? And then I kind of ran away from an intense situation at home, and I decided I was going to survive on the streets with a pen and a paper for a good while. I literally lived my life as this beatboxing, singing rapper girl that sold jewels on the side of the street. And modeling was a way that I would make very quick money, because I realized that I could model, charge $100 an hour. And then along my path, I got pulled into festival culture, which was, introduced me to quinoa. I remember being what's quinoa? 2009, what's quinoa? Yep. And introduced me to the flower of life and sacred geometry and, all the things that EDM and festival culture introduces us into. And a big part of that was meeting people that were more eco-minded. And I didn't find that necessarily in festival culture, but it inspired it. So I went on these journeys all throughout different parts of the planet that I was called to continuously. I take whatever money I got from modeling and from playing shows, and I would just fly to a place because I felt like it. And I just do the same thing again. I'd show up. I sometimes use couchsurfing.com, but I mostly just did it without a cell phone or without a pen or without a cell phone or tablet or a laptop, just with a pen and paper, old school, meet people at the drum circles, meet people at the ecstatic dance, meet people talk, meet people at cafes. I think food played a big part in it, was me cleaning my diet out. I did a lot of cleansing and a lot of parasite cleansing. And being in alignment with eating healthier and using healthier products brought me to places that I would have never had access to if not for my interest in those, right? Mm-hmm. So I got brought into some permaculture, multi-million-dollar palaces where I got to meet some of the most amazing people, superfood geniuses, people who are experts in cleansing. Yes. And doing that, having access to these things, like discovering monatomic gold quite young, and discovering, certain minerals and superfoods and all of that, basically becoming a superfood junkie, like
sure,
doing what I can to like cleanse my body. After all of that, I would say it was in about 2020 when I decided to take the influencer path. Took all my modeling photos that I had from like all these years of travels, and I built up a portfolio, and I started contacting these companies that I wanted to work with. That was kind of the beginning of it all, was just me being like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I'm not just going to be this rapper and this singer and this model. Like, I'm also going to be an influencer, because it made sense. Because people always came to me. They always wanted my advice on products. They always wanted my beauty secrets. They wanted to know where I got my clothes. They wanted to know all these things from me. So naturally, I was like, hey, I can make a living off of recommending things to people and writing and, just basically being this person that is of inspiration. Because I think that that's originally what influencers are supposed to be, is they're supposed to like inspire things within us. It's a world of consumerism out there. So I think for a long time, I rebelled against it, because like I didn't want to create more of a footprint on the earth. I used to not even wear artificial clothing for like 10 years. I washed everything by hand. I was like so meticulous with how I chose to live my life. Yep. And then I got to a place where I realized that I could be more impactful if I were to, kind of like blend in and stand out in a way, like, where I'd be able to carry my values and my morals into my work, into the world of business and modeling and fashion and all of that. So I started a clothing line that year in 2020, Happy Existence. And that was huge for me, because I was like, well, if I want to make more sustainable wear in the world, I have to like make it. You know what I mean? Like, not just sew it by hand, but like, put it out there in a bigger way, open a store with e-commerce. I started working with certain companies that have sustainable options, which was good. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into influencing. Was 2020 pandemic. I was going through a lot at the time. I was really struggling in my life. I didn't even know if I was going to live. It's like not in a really good place. But I thought to myself, hey, if I could like put things out there in the world and inspire people to, like, I believe that green is glamorous. Like, I believe that people can look just as good wearing all natural, like, made of natural material makeup and wearing hair products that aren't filled with absolute gunk. You know what I mean? Like, I believe that we can get the same vibe and the same look and feel just as good going for cold dips in the river, coming out, like learning how to take care of our skin and our hair and our nails without, having everything be so artificial and synthetic. So
kind of a timeline, I guess, for this 2020 was when you kind of dived into being an influencer in that end of it. Like how long before that did you do the traveling, and like, were you in high school yet, or was it after that? Or
I began traveling at 2 weeks old with my family, like quite literally. Like, my first plane was to New York and at 2 weeks old. And then I never stopped until I was 26. So so I had like little periods of time where we settled in Alberta for a short period of time, but I never enjoyed that time. So I kind of just like ran away and kept traveling. So I've always traveled like nonstop, like all over to different places.
Top 3 favorite places to be?
Okay, number 1, a little place in Hawaii called Puna. Some people refer to people there as punatics, but it's a specific lifestyle that you have to have a certain mindset to be able to live there. You know what I mean? It's very much a mob mentality, tribal, like, we like live off grid, and if you mess with us, like, you know what I mean? But it's also like the most loving, supporting, real community that I've ever had. So, and the fruit is amazing, the nature is amazing, and the lifestyle there is basically a living rebellion of utopia. Like, it's an incredible place. So that, I would say, is one of my favorite places in the world. Number 1. Number 2, that's a tricky one, because there's so many places I've been, but that don't really stick out. I definitely love Paris. Like, I've always had an affinity with Paris since I was a very young girl. And I don't know what it is about it. Like, Paris and southern France and that whole area there. Like, Paris is kind of like this central place in France that, like, it has all this like big woo-woo around romance, and there's also like this harshness to it that a lot of people don't really aren't used to. Like, the French can be so blunt, but like, I love that. I love really blunt, like in your face, like fully in love with life, and like that kind of vibe. I really like that about the French. trying to think of another place that like really stands out. Because for me, it's like I could just bring it all to Puna. Like I've always felt that way. That I'm like, you know what, if it would be to be a place, you know, I like the Yucatan, and I like there's places I like. There's things I like about places, but they don't like hit my soul the same. Do you know what I mean? Like there's places that I'm like, yeah, that's cute, but like, would I actually live there full time? No. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, you know, like is that a place I would vacation to? Yeah. You know?
I totally understand. Some places in the world just kind of it feels like home no matter where you are, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I used to really like this place, like the Sunshine Coast in Vancouver, but unfortunately, like I said, the culture kind of cancels out the beauty of nature here, which is kind of harsh to say, but like that's just my truth, you know.
What turns you off about the culture, I guess?
I would say that there's this like individualistic, conditioned, consumeristic mindset that's like always lingering, that a lot of people are in denial of. And so they're juxtaposing it, whatever colonial guilt they may have, by creating these spiritual sub-personalities and these like higher than thou illusionary sub-personalities. And then if you call them out on their incongruent behavior, they do this thing where they get really like exclusive and they exclude you. And it's like this snobbish kind of like weird passive aggressive energy. And for me, I'm just not like that. Like I've been to very blunt places in the world, like whether that's the south of the States, or whether that's down in LA, or whether that's in Alberta, or whether that's in Europe, like, or whether that's in Puna. It's like I'm used to people being really like upfront and direct. And I find that in the Sunshine Coast, there's a lot of, and in Vancouver, there's a lot of like deceit, and there's a lot of people stepping on one another to try to gain some kind of like status advantage. A lot of manipulation, a lot of just, it's been a very, and I've met a lot of people around the world who've been to these areas and who have said the exact same thing to me. And I'm like, yeah, like there's something in the culture here. I think it's because everything is so expensive that people, their focus has to become money. They're always in a state of survival. And, there's, you know, most of the peace and love comes from EDM culture, which unfortunately is just riddled with addictions, concealing deeper issues at hand. So,
what's drawn you back to the Sunshine Coast yourself?
Why I'm here? Well, I live in a really big, beautiful land that I can just like keep to myself with my family. So I come here and I hermit and I do my work, I record. And then when I go to the city, I go perform and I do shoots.
How often do you spend time creating versus going out and doing the shows and the shoots and stuff?
I'd say I'm always creating. Like even when I'm doing shows and shoots, I'm like filming, I'm posting, I'm always creating. But when it comes to like actually making albums, it's like a throughout thing. It's never like I'm gonna just do this and then I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this. It's like I gotta do this, 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 and and then start all over again. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this.
And you're at the end eventually.
You know. So yeah, it's always like a throughout process. It's never done. I've been working on a project for 15 years. You know, it's like huge project, and then I have another one which I completed, which is an 8-year project, and then I'm working on one that's like a 6 or 5-year project, and then after that there'll be one more, and then I'm going to be done with albums, because like I can do singles, I can do like freestyling and my stuff that's live, but like recording actual albums, like I don't think people understand just like how much work it goes into it, especially when you're an independent artist that's funded through yourself and you have to apply for grants and do everything yourself, register all the royalties and distribution and all of that. I don't think people understand just like how much work it is. But yeah, it's a lot of work. So I'm gonna, after I'm done with this album, I'm gonna take a break until I finish my last album, and then I'm just gonna be done with recording albums for a while.
Fair enough. How many albums have you produced already?
2. I've done 2, and then I have one that's in the works I just need funding for. So I'm gonna start funding for that one. So 3, and then I'm working on my 4th right now. And then after that will be my, then that will be completion, like where I'm like, okay, I'm getting old.
I've got the whole package is made, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right on. Cool. So what about the modeling end of things? Are you still doing some shoots? Are you still doing some work? Are you able to travel with that? How's that end of it going?
All the time. My modeling basically funds my music career. And at one point, my music career actually was like thick enough to not do as much modeling, which was really good. But unfortunately, the pandemic changed that a lot and changed the way that both the modeling and just the entertainment industry in general, which I'm a big part of because I do film and I model and I, perform.
Right.
But prior to the pandemic, I definitely was performing more than modeling. But modeling, since I was young, I've been part of the modeling world. I was a witness to my mom being part of the modeling world. So I was in classes at like 8 years old, back in like Toronto, like 90s, up from MTV and like, that whole era. And then I got back into modeling when I was 12 and I applied at all these agencies. They liked my look and then they didn't. And I think it's because, you're in that awkward, like 12-year-old growth spurt period, you know what I mean? And so then when I was 18, I discovered the power of Craigslist and then forums like Model Mayhem. And, just all those like back ends, they're kind of sketchy, but whatever, like modeling sites. And that's kind of how I started creating my own career for myself and how I survived on the streets and basically funded my ability to eat and at some points to house myself, but mostly to eat and to do my music was modeling was my main bread and butter for quite some time. So I still been going at it. I'm like 14 years, like, I've done thousands of shoots. So like, like it's been quite a job for me. And I'm really glad that it's been a part of my life. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm still doing shoots and I'm still, I might potentially go to Europe. I applied for a visa, so we'll see what happens there. But
good for you.
We'll see what happens.
Nice. Yeah. What are some people, like everybody wants to be a model, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of one of those things everybody wants to do, right? But there's a lot more to it, as you've expressed, in creating and being an artist and that sort of thing. What are some things that you found in actually developing a bit of a career out of this? Some places to start, things to watch out for, things you wouldn't do, things you would definitely do. You have any tips for people listening on?
Yeah, I would say, build a Model Mayhem, build a Purple Port, have an official website if you can. You can have an account on Caviar. These are all like free modeling sites that have like extra memberships for, to get more exposure. I mean, I wouldn't recommend Craigslist in this era because this era is very different than when I began in 2009. Do you know what I mean? Like we're in whole different times now with all the AI and the bots and the whatever. But from Model Mayhem, and also, there's Facebook. My only issue with Facebook is that, Facebook is a sketchy place, whether that's Facebook Marketplace or that's like Facebook, luckily there's a lot of groups that will warn models about particular photographers locally that have had issues, whether those are violence or assault or whatever. Yeah. So there are groups. So if you're going to go the Facebook route, as well, just make sure that you join those modeling groups that are warnings and whatnot, protecting groups and whatnot. But yeah, I would say that if somebody doesn't have any modeling career and they want to become a model, they could start by building an Instagram just by like getting a friend to take good photos of them and then take those photos, put those on Facebook, ask for what's known as a TFP, a time for print or time for photo. Get higher quality photos to then represent themselves. Take those to multiple agencies. I would recommend that you don't just choose one agency that only needs you to be signed with one agency, but to actually sign with multiple agencies. And then on top of that, keep freelancing because like we're in a day and age where it's rare to like just sustain yourself as just a model. Like unless you're signed with like Elite all the way out in Europe, do you know what I mean? Like the reality of the situation is you're going to need to have multiple streams of income as a model, right? So then I would recommend that someone, every time they're about to shoot with a photographer, they ask the photographer for references for other models. That's a must because, if anybody can create an account on the internet nowadays and post a bunch of photos they found on Google and you have absolutely no idea who you're meeting up with. So it's always a good idea to tell people where you're going, when you're going to be there, and if possible to have a chaperone if that makes you feel comfortable. Maybe study some martial arts. If you're in the States, maybe you should bring a weapon just saying. Right. But like, not that I promote violence, but definitely self-defense is important. And I've learned that many times. Yeah, I would say that those are the things I would personally do. And then I would reach out to brands for credibility, because if you start to like influence for brands, what you can do is you can like wear the clothing at a shoot. get the photos taken, take those photos, put them out on the internet, have your affiliation marketing code, and then you're making double the money because you're getting paid to wear the clothes and then you're getting paid to shoot. So you're like getting like future money and then you're getting present money. So that's one of the ways that as a model, I would recommend, like, you know, you get your wheels going. And then once you've built enough credibility, like, hi, this big brand works with me, or the small brand, and this small brand, and this small brand works with me, then people recognize you as a professional, which sounds ridiculous, but that's just how it works. You kind of have to fake it till you make it and just create this like image of yourself. Modeling is all in creating an image. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty good. I like that. What are some experiences in your career that you just go back to and you think, hey, that was really awesome. I got to work with that photographer or that brand or got to shoot at that location. What are some highlights?
Honestly, my favorite shoots are done with friends. And some of the most incredible editorial looking images have come from shooting with friends that I don't expect anything. Like I had this one shoot last year with my friend and she had this like big Greek themed bathtub. And we decided to fill it up with like milk and food coloring and this eco glitter that's like biodegradable. And we used all these star machines and all this lighting to do what, you know, a filter would do in like a second. But we're like, no, we're going to do it all ourselves and make it look like, you know, like get the fog machine, get this, get that, like set it all up.
Nice.
And it was just so cool in the end. It just turned out to look like something that would be from like America's Next Top Model. Do you know what I mean? And it just brought me a lot of joy to co-create that. And I think that that's one of my favorite shoots I've ever done where like, yeah, I've shot for different companies, you know, and I've shot, for different hobby photographers that have their own like, you know, look that they're trying to fulfill through the model and whatnot. And I've met a lot of photographers that I've had really deep, amazing spiritual conversations with. And I think that those are the ones that I tend to remember the most because they've kind of played out this role in my life where when I was young, especially where, you know, they almost had like a family energy. And I know that sounds kind of weird to say, but it's like, you know, like some photographers, they've just like become these people in my life that they're friends. They're almost like feel like those like, you know, family friends when your family has like an old person that's their friend and then they're all like really friendly and kind and loving and teach you wisdom that your family can't necessarily teach you. I've definitely had moments in my modeling career where I've developed friendships with photographers I've shot with multiple times where we've just created a certain level of depth and there's just a certain level of respect and understanding. So I would say that those are the shoots that I really enjoy. And I always love just being in nature. Like when I can spend a day like baking in the sun in nature and get paid to do it, like, you know, like,
great day. Yeah.
I'm not going to complain, right? I like shooting at beaches and in nature. And, you know, I've definitely done some really interesting shoots that are really cold and really uncomfortable, but then the final look looks amazing.
Right.
You know, like cold.
Why am I out here?
Rainy shoots and things like that. But yeah, I'm definitely not one of these models that goes like, wow, I shot with like this big name and that means something to me. Because like for me, I think that the shoots that have touched me on more of a personal level actually mean more to me than the shoots that are just like professional like milestones, if that makes any sense.
Very cool. I love hearing that. That's awesome. So, and that's part of creating, right? Is about building that network together and doing something together that not everybody gets to do. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about the sustainability part of your life? Because I know you'd mentioned before, it's not quite off grid, but it's kind of living back to nature and that sort of thing. What are some things that you're doing in your personal life to live more sustainably?
I would say I'm pretty much a hypocrite in that these days, in contrast to the person I was, you know.
That's okay.
But you know, everything is a balance and yeah, you know, I've gone through phases and I've learned to, you know, kind of find that moderation with it all. But, you know, the typical things, I try to recycle every single thing I can in every single way I can. And I try to upcycle everything I can in every single way. I mean, I live in a tiny home, so people shop from my closet. Like I have this big Narnia closet and they just like come and shop from it. So like, nice. I'm always considering like when I'm selling my clothes, I take that money and like, let's say I'll just buy one or like trade in like 40 clothes. And instead of just like dumping them somewhere or throwing them out, somebody comes and buys them. And then I take that money and I buy that one article of clothing that replaces those like 40 articles of clothing. Nice. So things like that. And then I'd say like I have my fruit trees and I have my potatoes and I have my garlic and I have like my food that I'm growing. We used to have a farmer's market here. I don't know what's up with it since COVID because like there was a lot of just like calamity that happened in that time. So I haven't really followed up with it. But in the past, we used to have a seed bank and seed exchange and a permaculture school here. And things are, like I said, they're shifting and changing right now in this community. But I like foraging my mushrooms in the fall. I like gathering my herbs. I like making my teas and my potions, and I like making like body butters and ozonating them. And the stuff that I put on my skin is natural and organic. And yeah, I think that just by like living the way that I do, like I do have a lot of sustainable clothes. I'm wearing some like microplastics right now, which I know is a big no-no in my past, but like, you know, it's cozy. And I figured that if I only have a few items of like synthetic clothing, but I wear them like all the time and I like repurpose it I can, then you know, it's a healthy balance. But cool. Yeah, just little things like that. I think it's all in the little things that we do every day, like how much we choose to eat out, how much we choose to recycle. If we're choosing to always mail things from all over the world nonstop to ourselves, or if we're choosing to like shop more locally. Having a sustainable clothing line has been really huge for me because like I honestly love my sweater and I'll wear it more than most of the things I own. So I think having less items of clothing with more usage has been huge for me in my tiny home life because like it gets really hectic in here real quick. Let's see, other things that I could recommend for sustainability. I think that there'll come a point where we can utilize technology to synergize with nature a lot more effectively, and that we're still in this period as a collective where we're really caught in our self-image, so we're not actually really advancing. But like the life that I have lived, in contrast to the one I'm living now, because the one I'm living now isn't as sustainable as the life I have lived in contrast to my past. So I'd say something that we're different, where I used to do human manure, which is where you compost your fecal matter and you use like an advanced toilet, or you use the jungle, which does a really good job real quick. You know, like that's the number one thing that I think as a species that we're missing is our connection to our fecal matter. I know that sounds really ridiculous, but like if we actually learned how to work with it instead of like just wasting water and flushing it everywhere and like getting rid of it in ways that are not sustainable for our planet, that would be a really big awakening on like a grand scale. You know what I mean? Because I think that we don't really know how to work with our poo, to be you know, and we don't know how to like mulch things. We don't know how to like gather the seaweed at the storms and then like learn how to mulch our food. We've kind of forgotten these ways as to like how we communicate with nature because we're so accustomed to just like always going to the grocery store. Everything's in plastic, everything's pre-made. And I think that convenience is one of the biggest things that you know, it's costing us on a bigger scale right now. So I would say, you know, like for me, I don't drive a car and I haven't for a long time. I just have my e-bike. But yeah, like I'm a hypocrite. Like I take rides when I can. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I use public transport and like, you know, like, so I'm not like, but I definitely, you know, I do my best by like keeping as local as I can when I'm here, you know, or wherever I go anywhere, you know, because I do travel. So I know I have quite a travel footprint on the planet and I'm not perfect, but like when I go anywhere, my aim is to meet the farmers, figure out who they are, figure out what they're selling, how I can support them. And yeah, and eating as locally as possible. Yeah, just minding what I'm consuming. I think that that's like number one thing is we can use, it's okay to use things. I think we have shame around using things as humans. We have this like love and shame of like using things. And I think it's fine to use things as long as you learn how to use them effectively. That's what I'm figuring out is like, it's okay for me to buy that fuzzy thing that I really is going to keep me warm and comfortable. But as long as I'm not just like buying it and throwing it away and then buying another one and throwing it away and buying another one and throwing it away. You know what I mean?
Good approach. Good approach.
Yeah. Once I buy it, like that's my treat for a while. I'm not going to like splurge over and over and over again. Right.
Well, just saying something nice and warm and fuzzy probably causes you to use less heat. So long term, it's sustainable at some level, right? So there's always that give and take too, right? So
yeah, I mean, that was my main reason for actually starting to buy fuzzies because I do have some guilt around it at times because like once you have that awareness of like the microplastics are going into the ocean, you know what I mean? Even if you use the bags and use like the African soap nuts and do all the little things, it's like, you know, the back of your conscience is like, I am having an impact that is detrimental on Mother Earth and like, that's very hard. Like, you know, I'm not one of these people that can go to the beach and then just let litter enter the ocean. I just can't. It's just like, nah, you know what I mean? Like I have to go and I have to go like spend my entire day not chilling and just picking it everywhere until it's gone and then I can chill, right? And so I don't know. I think that those are the ways that I do my best to help planet Earth. I've tried to protect forests. Unfortunately, you know, that doesn't always work, but I've done my best to protect some places. And I try to raise awareness to certain things through my newsletter, and I have for many years. And I've tried to link the people that have money to like the ocean protectors, and the people who have money towards the forest protectors, and the people who protect indigenous culture, to weave them together, and then to play this facade of being this like model / rapper girl. So I think that that's kind of how I go about promoting more sustainability, is through my influence.
You know, Natalia, don't sell yourself short. You're doing a lot of great things there, and I think, you know, when you feel a call or a leading in your life to be an advocate for something like that, then don't sell yourself short when you're trying to do the small things and experiment on what's working, because it sounds like you're doing a lot of really great things. So some of us aren't doing a lot at all. So just take that for a win there. So
I get that, and I take that in. I guess for me, it's just like, you know, I'm not trying to be humble or modest. It's more so just like I have this self-awareness that like I think that all of us are hypocrites in some way. And if we can take ownership of that, right, we can take ownership of our flaws, then we can actually really understand like the glimmers of authenticity and truth that is within us. Because like I think if I hadn't come to such a balance in my own life with materialism, then maybe I would be more judgmental, you know, towards people that are hyper materialistic, right? And because I've been that person. Once upon a teenager, I was hyper materialistic and I didn't know, right?
Sure.
And I've also been the revolutionary hippie girl that, you know, kind of can be a bit like snooty at times, you know, like, so I've understood, like, you know, there's different facets to our psyche and how we approach our relation with earth, and every person's relation with earth is completely different. Like you might have a hillbilly, and for them, like they're like crazy music blasting with like a crazy fire and like drinking beer and all, that's their ritual. Like that's their connection to earth, right? And then you might have, you know, some person who's just afraid of germs and, you know, only buys the finest high heels in the planet, or I don't know, like there's all these different people, and like the way that they relate with the universe, like that's their connection. So I'm here to just say like, well, this is my connection is trying to find a balance and to be more accepting of myself, you know?
And there's probably a level in life where, you know, you develop and you mature and you see things and you have experiences and you live a certain way and then you live a different way and you kind of learn all the way through that. I think kind of bridges that gap and makes our lives fulfilled, right? Because we get to experience all of these things and grow through it all, right? So our time here is very short. So you know, getting to always evolve into something new and greater, I think is the big piece in it all, right? So
boldly, I think that's one of the biggest components, that if we can come to learn how to include, then we can transcend. And a lot of people don't like the word transcend because it sounds like really very fairy, but what it basically means is like, you know, you're able to take something in and then you're able to make something of it, right? Like that's, and because a lot of the time I think that we compartmentalize and we create a lot of opposition with duality. We go, it's this, it's that, it's black, it's white, it's wrong, it's right, it's male, it's female, it's this, it's that. And concept itself is naturally dualistic. And a lot of the time we get caught in opposition because we think that something has to be one way or it has to be the other. But the universe is filled with paradox, right? So through inclusion, we have this ability to go, it's this, and it's also potentially this. It's this, but potentially it's not this, but it's also that. And what happens with that is that we're not forming a conclusion. We're just allowing the variables to present themselves as they do. And then we allow ourselves to create action from certainty, right? And certainty is not thought, it is felt. So it's a matter of choice creating ripple, right?
And coming back to, as you mentioned in the beginning, balance, right? So
yes, balance. Yes, for sure.
Very cool. No, I love that. Love that the way you brought that around again. So what are some things for we could probably go on this conversation for a long time, but you know, next couple of years and that sort of thing for Natalia, what are some goals, ambitions, dreams that you see for yourself?
I'm going to finish this album. I'm hopefully going to go on some modeling tours and keep working on my album. Like, you know, I like living my life like a romance. So I like putting myself in foreign, not so foreign places, you know, kind of taking the time to work on my craft from a distance, because not everything can be done from a laptop. So it's kind of that healthy balance, like having my grounded local community vibe and then going off on trips and networking and trying to weave like different markets together and all of that. And so I've got like my album. I want to eventually fundraise for my musical I've been working on for 15 years. And I've got books that I'm getting formatted, and there's so many things. There's so many projects in the work. Eventually, I want to create an app I just finished a breathwork course that took me 4.5 years to film and edit. So I'm working a lot, hence the name Observe Breathe, on like just how to create programs that are very effective in what they do when it comes to breath work, whether that's soothing the breath, invigorating the breath, cooling the body, heating the body. I organize the breath and it's in sequences that are effective and that are safe for the body, because not all breath work is safe unless somebody knows exactly with the progression of the breath work. And so I've been just probably working on just continuing to build from that, like eventually creating all these different courses that are connected through subscription-based oriented website, or like I said, eventually creating an app. I'm always creating content for other people, whether that's filming or editing or scripting or like all the different things that I do. I'm kind of at a place of unknown because, like, ChatGPT comes into the room and all of a sudden it's like, well, we're not going to need models or content creators anymore. So I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like, I'm just at this place of like a standstill. But I do know that, like, I want to eventually create an app, and I want to finish all my albums. My albums are like my number one. Like, everything that I do for modeling and influencing is honestly to fund my music. Like, if I didn't have to influence or model, like I think that I would just be a hermit and like be happily in the woods, which is what I've been doing more so recently on my time off from shooting.
Cool.
So have my books, have my tea, have my forest,
Little
and
zen,
go
good
home,
to go.
record, stick to myself, like But being out there in the world is really interesting. Like, modeling is very interesting. And throughout the years, I've applied a lot of my yoga practice and my meditation practice to modeling, because you have to become this formless person in a form, right? And it can be soul sucking if a person isn't coming from a place of like understanding what their boundaries are, understanding what they're willing to do with their body or not. Like, modeling is such an industry where, people, they want what they want from you. And it's your choice as to whether you say yes to it or you say no, and whether you take them or you don't. Right. So for me, I think that it's been something over the years that I've really particularly enjoyed and had positive experiences with. I have definitely had my moments where I'm like, what am I doing? And this is one heck of a creepy imagery. And that's why more so I've been like connected to agencies lately, later in life, because there is a lot of risk with the freelance modeling, and that's just truth. Like, you never know when someone's going to tie you up, and that's that, you just never know. So I'm just in this phase right now where I'm not really interested in performing or doing festivals, because there's a lot of things I avoid in general when it comes to people these days. I've learned a lot of lessons.
Sure, absolutely. And that's all part of it. It's a kind of like you were talking about, just different places you've been in your life. Sometimes that we need that break time, and sometimes we're just ready to give her again. And in between, it's awesome. Good for you. What? How can we get a hold of you? I know, there's a level of privacy you like to keep, obviously, but what are some things? What are some ways we can get in touch with you or contact you if somebody wanted to work with you? Or
I have an official website, which basically all of my talents and skills and social media is on there. And you can just find me there. And it's observebreathe.com. So you observe and you breathe. Observebreathe.com. So if they want to find me on Instagram, my Instagram is on there, but it's observe_breathe, and not that hard to find. But if somebody wants to find my music, everything is on there, because it shows all my pages. It goes like this page, that page, and that page. So that's kind of like my hub.
Going forward, and as we start to consider closing this off, what would be Instagram and all of the social medias and your email list and everything blew up, and you could add 1 million people to share one message to? What would be the thing you'd want everybody to know?
That we're a mirror of the earth, and our lungs are like upside down trees that breathe, and our bodies are like, if we look at our veins and we look at our meridian lines, and then we look at the mycelial networks, we'll actually see this beautiful fractal symmetry between human beings and nature. And I believe that we've come here to be stewards of the earth rather than just consumers, self-serving consumers that are competitive and opinionated. I think that we can learn how to utilize AI without it going crazy and killing us, You know,
I
it
agree.
might have, we don't know, you know, like knowing the nature of human beings, but I think that it'd be so cool if we took this time where we are right now and did every single thing we possibly could to salvage the planet and to make it a better place. Then that would be great. And yeah, I don't know. I think it would just be really cool to make permaculture cool again. You know, like instead of focusing all this energy on like celebrity gossip and la 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 and trends and plastic surgery. La, 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 la. I think it would be really cool if people just like got really enthused to like have their own garden, even if it was like, you know, something that was just done for, you know, novelty. I don't care. Do you mean like it's better than if people can learn that it's going to be a really awesome thing to have your own crops, you know, like that would be great. That would be step one, like connect to your food, right?
Sure.
Connect to your land, connect to your food. Step two is be really, really, really kind in community because, you know, everything is temporary and it's all a mystery. So we might as well come from a place of love instead of being douchebags. You know, like that's all I have to say with that.
RESPCT, right?
Right.
Well, thank you so much for sharing tonight, Natalia. I think we'll probably chat sometime down the road too, because I know there's lots of good things to share about your albums coming out and your books and some of your more model shoots and stuff like that. So we do appreciate you sharing your time tonight, and we look forward from hearing you down the road. So
okay, well, much love. Thank you. Appreciate
right
the. Okay, bye bye.